What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the High Spot Podcast on the Give Us a Shot Network, powered by Fast Break Coffee. You can follow us on all our social media at High Spot Podcast. Joined today with a special guest, man, and looking forward to talking with Roheezy. Going to talk about his very interesting concept and something that, man, should have been thought of a long time ago, but we're going to give him his props today and throw flowers his way because I think this is the beginning of something new. And Roheezy joined us, man. You are of the Remix Rumble. Follow him on Instagram at Remix Rumble. And there's a special wrestling event happening in Philly during WrestleMania weekend. But he'll tell you about this. Roheezy, what's going on, man? Welcome to the High Spot Podcast.
Hey, what's up, man? It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys reaching out. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this with you guys today. And it's at Remix. I wish it was Remix Rumble on Instagram.
Remix Rumble. Yeah.
It's a Remix.Rumble on Instagram. It's Remix Rumble everywhere else, though. TikTok, Twitter, all that. But yeah. Or WrestlingNightclub.com. Yeah.
So, you got to be, first of all, let's talk about wrestling fandom because just, doing some research on you, and obviously you're a music guy and you became a fan, obviously, of pro wrestling. Where did that start? Where did you get your love for pro wrestling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really varies, I think like two sections of my life in terms of becoming a fan. I think I was a fan as a kid, but then I became a fan again later, closer to my teens as like a mark, I guess, for lack of a better term, Yeah, I definitely grew up watching Attitude Era and stuff. The first match I remember watching as a kid that really captivated me was like Rock and Brock Lesnar, SummerSlam, I think 2002, and I was super young at that point, but yeah, I think in 2006, my cousins introduced it to me again, and I kind of started looking it up on the internet, started understanding, what a face is, what a heel is, and that actually made me kind of fall in love with it more, to be honest, because the kind of dynamics of the storytelling and everything made me more interested in it. So, honestly, 2006 to probably I want to say 2012-ish, when I went away to university is when I was a big fan, and I'm not gonna lie, I took a hiatus for like probably like 9-10 years, man. And I've always kind of been in the loop a little bit, but I just got back into being like a really active fan again. Probably I want to say a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
What brought you back? Because that's a question. Because I think a lot of us after the Austins and the Rocks kind of took a little bit of a break because then we had the more of a reality based, the ruthless aggression era. To some maybe it wasn't just the same as the Attitude Era because we're kind of spoiled. But what brought you back though? What made you come back?
Honestly, like so I'm not fully sure, but I remember during the pandemic in particular, there's a lot of noise being made around like, I'm a part of like battle rap Twitter, which is I know is random, but like there's a lot of like parallels between battle rap Twitter and wrestling Twitter. And so I'd see stuff, a lot of my rapper friends would be retweeting stuff about like WWE is telling amazing storylines right now, and like the AEW stuff is like heating up. And I'd be like, is it that good? Because like a lot of people are like kind of raving about it. So I started tuning in again. I started kind of like going back to old stuff too, right? I started going back to see like how amazing like the lead up to Kane's reveal was. And it kind of like awakened my inner child again. And I was like, man, why did I ever stop watching this? This is like fire. And when I started watching the product, and obviously like there's some stuff that like, I was like, okay, this is a dud. But for the most part, I was like, this is really interesting. And they're actually making me want to tune in, if not week to week, like bi-weekly, whatever it is. So, I think it's really just the product is, they're focusing on storytelling again, which I love. And it's like a little less predictable than it was maybe, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago. Obviously, I take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because I've missed a lot of great wrestling moments. Like I was out of the loop when Daniel Bryan won, and that's crazy. That's crazy that I missed that. That's I know that's one of the best stories ever, but I do think the storytelling is on the up and up.
So you're a believer that storytelling helps create the wrestling. Like to you, does a great story help you when you're going to watch a match? Or see, because the big debate has been whether it's storytelling or whether you can just throw matches and people are going to watch. Maybe the novice, maybe not the novice fan. You're not going to draw their attention. If you have two indie guys and you're a fan, yeah, of course you're going to watch it. But does the storytelling draw you more?
So me personally, yes, but I don't think there's an objective truth because I was talking about this yesterday where some people, I think it was Swerve that was talking about like people underestimate the amount of storytelling you can tell between the ropes too. And I get that perspective. Like you can definitely, you look at like a Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay match, like there's a lot of storytelling that's being done in the ring as well. So I don't underestimate that. So I think it's different flavors for different folks. I think in terms of like, let's say WWE, for example, it's very important. Like you have to like really build a matchup because they've made it this grand thing where like like whether it happens at WrestleMania or SummerSlam, it impacts like your
Oh,
perception of the match, right? But maybe at a like in a New Japan, I'd have a different perspective because I watched that for a different, I watched that for a different type of product. But I think, yes, personally, like storytelling really impacts like my perception of the product. It can even, honestly, it sounds horrible, but it can make a kind of whatever match like really good, you know?
yeah, no, definitely, and I do think that you can tell stories in a match because
Yeah.
obviously the Hangman and Swerve feud that's been going on,
Right.
their matches have been amazing, and I think that that's where Swerve is drawing
For
his
sure.
his popularity right now through his matches, and so again, like you said, like my co-host who loves saying this, he goes, "It's like Baskin and Robbins. It's like 31
Mm,
flavors, and there's no
yep.
wrong flavor. It's what you choose." So obviously, you're a very talented rapper, and you can follow him on his personal Instagram at Roheezy Raps. Very talented,
Appreciate it.
my friend. I love the
Thank
way
you, bro.
see, I respect the creativity because obviously you take that creativity and you put it on on your platforms and everything, and the way you're mixing the beats and everything like that.
Thank
Much
you, man.
much credit to you.
Thank you.
So to the music level, right?
Right.
It's very comparable. Entertainment, sports entertainment, all this stuff. How did you think I'm going to mix this with pro wrestling and it's gonna draw? Or were you just like, let me just take my passion and see where it goes? What was the
Yeah.
idea?
Definitely a little bit of both, man. It was definitely a little bit of a risk, but it was a calculated risk because so I got a homie who it's kind of crazy how it works. Like I help artists like, grow their following on TikTok, Instagram, etc. Like that's one of my passions is just helping fellow artists do that, fellow musicians. And one of my first guys I helped, his name is Alex Cade. He's like my brother now. And he like blew up like after taking my advice, but then he took it in his own direction and he created these things called anime raves, which are essentially, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but he would make these EDM remixes. He's an EDM artist. He'd make these EDM remixes of anime theme songs. And obviously the anime community just as big, maybe bigger than the wrestling community. The fandom there is crazy. And it really took off, man. Once these remixes started popping off, he started doing in-person parties where he's like, these fans probably want to come and party to this because they can't find, their fellow fans like in everyday settings.
Yeah.
And it took off, man. He did like a whole tour with it and everything. And I started noticing there's like all these other like niche parties too. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. SpongeBob rave is a thing. Like
You know
people
what? I've never heard of it, but I would probably believe it. So
Shrek rave, all
yeah,
these things. And I was just like, I was thinking about it and I was like, I would love to like kind of like pull two communities that I'm really passionate about together. And I was like, I don't want to do it immediately after I just got back into wrestling. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I wanted to kind of take my time getting back into the community and everything. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm the guy to do this because I come from a music background and music is such a large component of wrestling. Like, why is no one putting this together? So it's still a little bit of a risk because no one's done it before. But I was also like, if it works in these other communities, like, why wouldn't it work in wrestling?
Of course. You know where I first thought of it? I've always wanted to go to Wale Mania. And I've
Yeah.
always I've always
Shout
wanted.
outs to Wale. Yeah,
Yeah, mad respect. He is a huge fan and respect his fandom.
definitely.
When we went to the one last year, we were finally able to get to go, had the chance to go with the schedule and everything. It worked out. We went there. They remixed wrestling themed songs and they were playing DX and they had remixed the
Fire.
Stone Cold theme. I was like, this is amazing. And I know someone's going to take this to the next level because everyone loved it. They
That's
were
dope.
just singing to all, they had the Miz too, they were remixing too. It was amazing. And I'm thinking
Fire.
someone's gonna take this and do it. And you've done this with your Wrestle Nightclub in Philly. The first one in Toronto, I believe, right?
Right. Yep.
And yeah, and so how did that go? talk about the planning and what led you. Okay, so you've decided to incorporate the music and the wrestling. What was the next step where you're like, okay, I think that there is a calling where people are going to come to something like this? How did that start? How did that form?
Honestly, I kind of just pulled the trigger on booking the Toronto date because I'm a big believer in like you shouldn't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean? Which is scary to say because this went viral and a lot of people were watching and a lot of people were actually kind of hoping it would fail. It sounds messed up, but
It's
you know,
nuts.
it
Yeah.
is what it is, right? So, but I'm a big believer in like you gotta pull the trigger and try it. You know what I mean? Do it in a calculated way. Don't lose like $20,000 or whatever. But it's like, so I booked the date, man, before any of this went viral or gained traction on social media. I booked the venue date and I was like, I'm gonna do this. If it fails, it's okay because I learn and I can like cancel the Philly date. You know what I mean? Like I can if it fails early, that's better than like failing later. I did it, and then really from there it was like the event planning and the marketing, which I'm thankful that I've ran many concerts and parties in my time, outside of the wrestling world. But regardless, I took my many years doing concert planning and like marketing and all that and kind of put it together, put everything to use, started posting on socials like with, reels and TikTok and everything. And slowly but surely it took off, man. And my kind of hypothesis, I guess, was if I can do this in Toronto, which is my hometown, but if I can do this in a town where WWE isn't even in town, right? Like there's not even a major PLE happening or anything in town and it does well, I definitely can do this in a town where there is a major PLE and people are flying in all across the country and all across the world to go in. And that was my main thing is if it succeeds in Toronto, I can then go ahead and do Philly and kind of like do it in a bigger stage. And it was great, man. Brought out over 250 people. We sold out like from online tickets. Um, and it went really really well, and a lot of good learnings too, like I'm not afraid to talk about it, like a lot of things that I thought would work that worked, but like I know how to kind of fix it to make it an even better experience. For example, my homie who does anime raves, he was like, you should do like 30% wrestling songs, 70% like other songs, because people say they want the anime songs at his things, but they actually want to dance to like other music. So I did a similar thing. I did like I think 40% wrestling songs, but everyone was like, bro, it should be like 80% wrestling
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I know that, and
Yeah.
now it's going to be like, it's going to be so much more. It's still going to be mashups and like mixed in with other stuff. Don't get me wrong. But again, that's what the first one's for, right? Is to kind of learn and kind of go from there. So
Yeah, of course, you need to have a template, and then it
yeah,
just gets better and better, right?
sure. Yeah.
Uh, WrestleMania, I'm sure, had its first rough patches at WrestleMania, the first ever one, and then
Right.
they learned, right?
Definitely,
So
man.
so now you have one coming up, Wrestling Nightclub Philly, on April the 4th,
Yep.
8 PM.
It's going to be
Uh,
crazy.
we'll talk about that, but we're gonna plug it for you here. But I just have one more question about the other one. So
Definitely.
the feedback was good, right? Did you how quickly, because the IG kinda blew up
Right.
recently. It's blowing up because now it's word of mouth. And one thing about the wrestling community, once they like something, they're loyal and they're going to come back to it. So word of mouth and everything travels. So
Yeah.
the IG, I think I blew up, has blown up,
Yep.
and you're going to get to 10K really fast, So and
Yeah.
it's just going to keep growing and growing.
Crazy, bro.
So how did you reach out to Aaliyah though? Because she obviously former WWE superstar.
Right.
She obviously was booked for the event. How did
Yeah,
that
man.
come about?
Man, so in the early days when I was posting, we just had like a couple hundred followers, not even like maybe 100 followers. And then we had the really viral video, which is like, come with me to this wrestling nightclub. And that blew up. And I was just keeping, because it was blowing up, I was keeping a really close eye on every single person that was like sharing, showing love, following everything. And the first thing I noticed, I think, was like Mr. Kennedy and RVD liked it. And I was like, oh my God. I
Yeah.
was like, this is crazy. I was like, and I had a feeling, I was like, if this keeps going, like it's gonna reach, it's gonna reach like everyone in the community. So I was keeping track and I noticed like you followed us, like formerly known as Leah. She followed us, and I was like, this is dope. I'm gonna DM her because she's from Toronto. I don't know
Yeah.
if people know that. And so I was like, I'm trying to make a connection here because she's from here too. And I was like, if you're in town, if you're back home, I'll get you tickets, whatever. And then I think she was like, thank you so much, whatever. I think on Twitter, she actually posted saying, this might have been a day or two later. She was like, I would crush a DJ set at one of these. you know,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of discourse on Twitter about Wrestling Nightclub and everything. And then people were retweeting it, being like, "Yo, we need like a Divas theme song only night. We're new for like DJs and stuff like that." And honestly, I saw that. I was like, I reached out to her. I was like, "Yo, like let's make this happen, whether it's here or later." And then she was like, "Yo, I'd love to, I don't want to hijack the show, but I'd love to help you out for the 26th and stuff." And from there, dude, I was like, let's make it happen. Let's just do like a quick 40-minute DJ set. And we worked together to kind of curate the set list and everything. And we went from there. So it was really an organic thing, honestly. And I think it was great for her too, because she hasn't really made, I don't think, a pro wrestling related appearance since like WWE. So, and to make it back home, and she came on stage and the fans were like, "Welcome home." They're
Yeah.
chanting like all these things. It was super fire. Like, you're not going to find a crowd like that anywhere. It's like they're going to appreciate you at home more than anything. So I think it was great for her to kind of do that.
Obviously, the planning to somebody that's just been released is going to get eyes set on her because it's one of her first appearances outside of WWE. So
Right.
very smart planning there. So obviously now we go into let's just say it was a successful first event, and
Yeah.
now of course everybody flocks. It is I guess the Christmas for every wrestling fan
Right.
is WrestleMania weekend. Of course, we know that the independents go there every major.
Definitely.
You
Shout
know,
outs to GCW. Yep.
GCW. They all head down there. They have their events all circled around WrestleMania coming up on in April the 6th and 7th. You'll
Yep.
be there. You get a head start there on the 4th. Just talk about this
Right.
event, the Wrestling Nightclub in Philly on the 4th. Looking forward to that. Me and
Yeah.
my co-host Brian, we're going to definitely go there and definitely check
Definitely.
it out. So just talk about that event.
Yeah, man. I mean, so it's the granddaddy of them all, right? It's the biggest stage in wrestling, WrestleMania, and it's Philly, which is one of the most insane towns in general for sports entertainment, everything. So we're really excited to bring it to Philly. We're going to be at the Concourse Dance Bar, which is going to be right in the heart of Philadelphia. And yeah, man, we are. It's going to be an amazing night full of wrestling theme songs, wrestling mashups. Also, it's going to be a wrestling themed party. So if you want to, there's going to be people showing up in cosplay. If you want to show up in cosplay, feel free to. It's not mandatory, but if you want to, it's more than encouraged. We're going to be having like wrestling trivia on stage. We're going to be having giveaways. We're going to be having vendors there. Wrestling themed drinks as well with the bar. We're going to be having it's just a whole shebang. We're going all out. And we're also currently in talks for special guests as well. So I can't say anything yet, but I wish I'd locked it in before this conversation, because that would
Well,
be
I'll tell you what. Anytime you want to come on here, and between now and WrestleMania, and you want to let us know anything,
awesome.
definitely let us know, and we'll get you on whatever
Well,
like that.
I think once we lock down the special guests, we'll have to have me back on, because it's a great special guest. It's a anyway, I don't want to say too
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
but it's a amazing special guest. And they're gonna crush it. So yeah, we're definitely gonna be having like wrestlers in the building and everything. So I'm super excited, man. April 4th, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna
I'm
be a
telling
crazy
you,
party.
word of mouth, you'll never know who shows up to these things, man.
Definitely.
Because once it, like I said, once it goes viral, and once the wrestling community, talks about this will definitely be something that's going to sell out. Obviously in Philly, and plus you get an early start too, April the 4th. Let it be your
Definitely.
kickoff to your WrestleMania
It's
weekend.
Thursday. Yeah, it's the Thursday.
Yeah.
So if you got, if you're going to indie shows on, you can hit GCW earlier in the day, come to the party. Then Friday, obviously, there's the indie shows plus SmackDown, and then Saturday and Sunday are WrestleMania. So I think, that sounds like the perfect weekend to me. If you come in like, one day earlier and you get there Thursday, I think this is the perfect like kickoff for your WrestleMania weekend.
It is, man. For the wrestling fan, definitely a must. And the location is 1635 Market Street. It starts at
Yep.
8 p.m. and this is going to go till 1 a.m. Who knows the way this thing is going to go? Who knows? Might go into the wee hours.
Who knows?
Or- but no, that's awesome, man. And again, the tickets too. You go to their Instagram at remix.
Yeah,
Rumble.
the easiest way. Sorry to interrupt. My
No,
bad.
no, no.
Just the easiest way to get tickets, because I know sometimes it's hard to remember social media handles and everything. Just go to wrestlingnightclub.com. I got that domain, so I think it's the easiest thing for people to remember
There
the
you go.
sticks. You just go to wrestlingnightclub.com, and then you'll see, all our links, and you can just click on the Philly tickets link. You buy tickets, and all the info will be there on your tickets. You can buy tickets right now. Tickets are $22, which is the cheapest they're gonna ever be. So, as each tier of tickets sells out, it's gonna get a bit more expensive. So I'd recommend just get your ticket, online if you can. That way, you're guaranteed entry as well if we do sell out.
So obviously this thing is a great concept as we were talking about. That's why I wanted to get you on and talk about it. But you're also a very talented rapper as well. Uh, so what's been going on with that? What do you want to not gain out of this, because you're obviously doing this because you love this, but what is the hopes that we get another one? Do you want to make this like every major uh PLE that comes up in wrestling? Do you want to maybe link up with a major promotion? What is it, something that you would want to do?
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not like I don't have this like master plan in mind. I honestly was like, this is a cool. I had a little bit of time because we released like my rap group. We released an album last summer, and I was taking a little bit of time off, and I was like, I have some time. This is a fun side project. That's all this stemmed from. A lot of people are like, yo, so like, are you trying to like link with this person and like be acquired by this company? I'm like, oh man, nah, bro. This is just a fun side project, and I only have so much time to run it as well. So ideally, it's probably go to the cities where the major PLEs are if I am able to. It's not always going to be possible again because I'm literally a one man team, and then I get my friends, my girlfriend helps, like maybe like two or three of my friends help. So right now it's really just go to the major PLEs, and then obviously the most demanded cities. So I think I've seen like New York, Chicago, LA, Houston, Dallas, like a few other cities that are like everyone is like, please come here. So I'm trying to make those happen, hopefully in the summer. And then obviously because I'm in Toronto, anytime there's a PLE in Toronto, I'm gonna try and throw a show there. So there's Money in the Bank this July in Toronto. So I'm gonna try and do that. Just because obviously biased there towards giving back to my hometown, but
Of
I'm
course.
really trying to hit the major cities for sure, man. Like again, New York, LA, Chicago, etc. And yeah, wherever it takes me, it takes me. As long as it's fun, that's when I want to do it, because I know this business can also be a little bit ruthless sometimes in the business side. So the moment, I'm not saying I'm like leaving the moment it gets ruthless, but the moment it gets a little bit more like, I don't know how to describe it, but I think you know what I'm saying, where
I
it
get you.
becomes where the fun gets sucked out of it, and I hope that never
It
happens.
becomes work. If it's
Yeah,
work, then you're like, oh, it's a drag, and it doesn't become fun anymore.
it's a
Once
job,
that,
Yeah,
exactly. Once it's something that you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, then it's time to
yeah.
go on to something else.
It's not really like I'm not really like Vince McMahoning this where I'm like, "Oh, I wanna,
Hope
like, take over the world." Yeah, hopefully definitely not. Oh my god.
not.
It's insane. But
No.
even in terms of, like, trying to take over the world or whatever, make this the biggest thing ever, I just wanna, like, bring wrestling fans together, and whether that's a small show or a massive show, WrestleMania will be bigger, but even doing the smaller shows, like, as long as it's a good vibe and it gives people an outlet to kinda, experience that with their fellow wrestling fans, that's all I care about.
And you mentioned unite. Obviously, that's what a lot of these things want to do, because all wrestling shows want to unite the fans, especially under a big umbrella under WWE for that weekend. There's a lot of tribalism in this. As being
Dude,
a fan, dude,
let's talk
before
about it.
before social media, right? Obviously there was the Monday Night Wars, and that kind of got it kickstarted. And for the longest time, people have been trying to find something just like that. But obviously now with social media, dude, there's all this tribalism, and whether you do a lot of stuff for WWE related or your AEW, you're gonna get marked as a WWE person or an anti AEW guy, or vice versa. What are your thoughts about all of this, man? I know in a perfect world, we'd all get along, we'd all support each other, we'd want both companies to succeed. But as you're starting this venture, there's going to
Yeah,
be tribalism. You're going to get that negative feedback. You're going to get that
yeah.
troll behind the computer that wouldn't say it to your face or would want you not to succeed. You said so yourself, right? There's some people that wouldn't want you to succeed in your venture. What do you think about that in pro wrestling today? I think it is something that is so toxic and so unnecessary, because there's the piece of a pie for everybody. But do
Yeah.
you think it's something that the promoters can help to the companies can help unite, or is this something among us that we just need to like?
I wanted to get your perspective on it because, like, from what I know, right, like, I know back in the Monday Night Wars, I understand it a little bit more because back then the internet wasn't as big,
No,
right?
no.
And you're kind of like, okay, I'm team WWF, I'm team WCW. And there was a little bit of storyline attached to it too. There is now too, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but I understand it back then, right? Um, I don't really understand it now because like I thought we all learned that these are just corporations at the end of the day,
No.
right? And it's you don't need to like I don't know, like it's like you're giving them free marketing. Now, listen, if you are like truly like I prefer the product of WWE or AEW, like I'm 100% cool with that, you know? Like there's nothing wrong with that. But the way some people kind of like it's like you're running to the defense of like, honestly, billionaires who don't really need that because they have the money to run the marketing themselves. But I don't think people look at it that way. So I'll give you an example. Like, I was actually really surprised at the event, like at the Toronto event. I'm not afraid to say this. Like, I tried to mix in like AEW songs. There's definitely a lesser percentage because like it's generally lesser known, you know. But I tried to mix in like Kenny Omega and some stuff, and obviously Swerve's song went crazy because
Oh,
everyone loves
yeah, everyone's
everyone you can't even hate
yeah,
on Big Fred,
no,
you know what I mean? Even
no,
if you're like a WWE head, like you can't hate on that, right?
can't hit
But
on
yeah,
that song.
yeah, like people are booing like some of the songs, and I was like, this is crazy to me because at the end of the day, if you prefer the product, that's cool. But the wrestlers behind the product are still workers. You know what I mean? Like these are still talented people behind the product, and you don't need to like. I'm not saying they were. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, please.
They're not allowed to like, why are you shitting on you're indirectly shitting on the wrestlers, right? When
Yeah.
you're like booing while like I don't know, while like Kenny Omega, I don't think they were booing Kenny Omega, you know, because it's Canada. But you know, like when you're like booing while a certain theme song comes on, unless that person's really problematic. So I think personally, I don't understand it because I personally think you should, you know, if direct that towards the wrestlers you don't like or who are problematic or whatever. But it's like, why are you just running to the defense of a company that doesn't really need it? Me personally, I'm an open mind to everything. I do have my, you know, product that I prefer at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, if like New Japan puts on a banger of a match, I have no problem being like, that was the best match this year. You know what I mean? I'm never gonna let my tribalism get in the way of me like not saying that. That's crazy to me, man.
Nor should it. There's one thing I respect and admire everyone's passion because they're
For
passionate
sure.
about this. That is not what is the problem. It's just the fact that, for example, I'll let me just take for example your event. Ali was there, and I believe there were some trolls that were just I don't know either like
Definitely.
picking on Aaliyah, and I'm like, like what's wrong? She's a wrestling fan. I didn't get it. And it's just people that have nothing better to do.
So there was a Stan account that was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
posted and was like, this is like cringe or whatever to
yeah,
her DJing an
yeah.
event. And to me it's crazy because it's like someone just doing what, you know, it's not her full-time thing. Like she's a
Yeah,
wrestler, you know, she's trying to figure out what's next and everything, but it's like she's just doing something fun in the meanwhile. And shout outs to Rhea Ripley, bro, because Rhea
oh,
Ripley
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
ripped that troll in half. Rhea
yeah,
Ripley was like, nah, this isn't cringe. What's cringe is that
yeah,
you have a fan account. You're
yeah,
not even your face isn't even on this
no,
profile picture. And you're shitting on someone for doing something fun, like go outside and touch grass. That was like, I saw that. I'm like, thank you, mommy.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
uh,
it's true though. It's like, why
yeah,
are people so obsessed with like just shitting on like they don't see people as human though.
no,
You know what I'm
no,
saying? They're
no,
just product to them.
they
That's
feel
the
like
messed up.
they feel like they're part of this war that's
Yep,
non-existent. That sometimes maybe Tony Khan kinda takes it to that next level a little
for
bit, but,
sure.
I get it, but,
They're responsible too. The
yeah,
people behind, like, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, the executives, I'm not
yeah,
absolving any of
yeah,
them of that responsibility. Definitely, bro. Criticize, you know, Tony Khan or whoever, you know, I mean, look at like Vince McMahon, just because you're like a WWE fan, you're gonna ignore all the messed up shit he did.
no,
Hell no. No,
no,
you need to hold people accountable. That's definitely, I'm definitely
mhm,
not saying don't do that, but it's like you don't have to like defend every action
no.
of a company just because you're a fan of that product, you know?
Yeah, and neither is this podcast. This podcast is more because we have a passion for pro wrestling, and we're gonna talk about the topics and give
Right.
our opinions. But rarely will we ever do we not want to see a company succeed. I think a lot of people
Right.
get their clicks and they get like that because they're a pro company or anti company, and I just that's not a way to live, not a
Yeah.
way to be a fan of pro wrestling. Because then you're not really a fan. You're just doing this so you can increase your social media and your
Right.
range and your
Right.
whatever. That's what
It's
we.
engagement baiting, bro. That's all it is.
It's truly what it is, and then you're not being real, or you're not who you are, because
We
then
just want to see the wrestlers succeed. That's it.
exactly, and the wrestlers have the biggest laugh of it all because they want each other to succeed too. They're happy for each other when they cross over and make the most cash
Yep.
because guess
Yep.
what? The next person is going to get the most cash. Right now, Mercedes Moné is going to sign with AEW, and
Yep.
she got the money that she wanted, obviously. And hey, you know what?
Yep.
The next person is going to get the same amount of money. So
Definitely.
the more people eat, the more places there are, more people are going to eat. And for the wrestlers,
Definitely.
it's great. They're not rooting against each other. So for the people
That's
that
a
still think
fact.
that this is, this is kayfabe, there's really a war. There's really not, dude. And
No way.
WrestleMania is coming up. How excited are you for the hype of it? How excited are you for the future of pro wrestling this year? Because 2023 it was an amazing time for pro wrestling. Now a little bit of a cloud has hit, but still, hopefully, it doesn't hinder the excitement of what's coming up in 2024. We've got free agents like Okada still out there. Mercedes Moné most likely will be in March with AEW.
Mhm.
Uh, I think 2024 is piggybacking off of an amazing year in 2023. What do you think? What are you looking forward to in 2024 for pro wrestling?
I'm looking forward to Jinder Mahal main eventing WrestleMania. No,
There
I'm
you
kidding.
go.
No, I'm kidding. But
We want
I'm
here.
don't hinder the Jinder, man.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just really excited for the continuation of long-term storytelling. I'm excited for really good, just between the ropes, like wrestling. I think I'm excited to everyone for everyone to learn, hopefully, from the fans' feedback from 2024 3 as well. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I hope that they don't ignore it, but I also hope, obviously, I understand the creative part of creative writing that I empathize with the creative teams because part of it is also sometimes you kind of got to swerve the fans too. And sometimes the fans don't actually know what they want, you know. Most of the times they do, but sometimes you got to swerve them as well. So I'm looking forward to that blend, man. I think there's some really good stories going on. I really don't know what's going to happen with the WrestleMania main event. I'm kind of confused right now, as a lot of people are, honestly. I was actually really excited for Rock and Roman, but not at the expense of Cody and like him winning
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Rumble. I know it's not a hot take, but it's just like it didn't make sense to me. Like if they had someone else win the Rumble, and then they did Rock and Roman, I might be like, all right,
Yeah.
cool, we can get Rock. I'm not even mad at getting like Cody and Roman at like WrestleMania 41, even though I would have preferred it
Yeah.
this year or whatever. But it's kind of like it seems like they've written themselves into a corner, but I know everyone's saying that, and they're probably working on not writing themselves into a corner right now. So I guess we'll see. Tonight is the I mean, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but as of
Yeah,
recording this,
we'll know what's going on here, but obviously, though,
yeah,
we're pulling for Cody because he's
sure,
just a really great guy. In small interactions that I've had with him, he's been really true.
amazing.
He is genuine. He is who he is. He's portraying. He's not even portraying anybody. He's being himself. That's why
He's a
everyone.
true face of the company, man. Like
Yeah,
he truly will, like, he'll make sacrifices, he'll step aside, he'll do whatever needs to be done to kind of it reminds me a lot about, like, and I know this sounds crazy, not from a standpoint of the Superman stuff, but like as I grew older, I wasn't a Cena fan growing up. I
yeah,
wasn't. But I was the typical John Cena hater. But as I grew up, like I started realizing, I'm like, when you look at the backstage of it all, it's like you start hearing about these stories of like John Cena suggesting, like, nah, I want to put that guy over. I want him to pin me. And you start hearing that and you're like, bro, like all the hate is like unwarranted because it's like, I know they booked him as like Superman or whatever,
mhm,
but there's a lot of times where he was like, recognize the power I have. I want this guy to go over. And
yeah,
that is such an underrated thing to have in sports entertainment where it's like there's so much egos.
yeah,
And Cody seems to be cut from that cloth where because he comes from that humble background of he had to work his way back up, he's not afraid to kind of like step aside and do these things. And I
yeah.
really respect that. And I think he needs to be rewarded for that, man. He deserves to like finish that story. And I hope I don't know if it's gonna be a yes movement again. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I hope they figure it out, bro.
I hope they do. I think at the end of the day, they will. I think he will finish his story. I think again, it's just dropping every obstacle they can in front of Cody so they can get
Yeah,
that ultimate babyface reaction, probably maybe the biggest one ever. So
right.
I think at the end of the day, we'll get what we want. It just depends on where exactly he will finish the story.
Yeah.
So obviously, big stuff coming up for you. and I said, please, anytime, hop on, let us know.
Appreciate
And
you.
any announcements or anything, maybe we'll talk before Mania, whatever, and talk about the lineup and everything. But man, I really appreciate you. Roheezy from Remix Rumble joins HSP Podcast. Man, follow him on all his social media platforms. Get those tickets. Wrestling Nightclub, nightclub.com, the best
Yep.
place to get it. And man, continued success. You're blowing up,
Thank
and I'm
you.
glad you could find time for us here
Absolutely.
on High Spot Podcast and join
Uh,
us here on Give Us a Shot Network, dude.
Thank you guys for reaching out, man. It was a pleasure chatting, and I'll definitely be back. I appreciate you guys.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Any way we can help out, let us know, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Cheers.